Hey everybody, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am so glad that you are here. Y'all, I have been gone for 8 days and I have not seen my garden, and it is so good to be back. I had the most relaxing, best vacation ever. But y'all, now I'm back and the garden is calling my name. If you're new here, I'm so glad that you stopped by my channel. My name is Barbara. I live in Tennessee. Welcome to A Gardener's Journey Homestead. On this channel, we talk about basically my journey as a gardener. I started gardening 5 years ago. This is my 6th year gardening, and I still feel brand new. But I take you on my journey, the wins, the losses, the goods, the ups and the downs, and just show you my homesteading journey all the way from the garden all the way to the kitchen. So we cook from scratch, we harvest, we preserve, we do all the things that a traditional homestead would do, and we just take you along with us for the ride. So in this video today, y'all, we are in the garden. We haven't been here, like I said, in about 8 days, and we're starting in the high tunnel. But we have one job today. We have a singular focus, and that is to prune our tomatoes. And so if you are struggling with great tomato yield, great tomato abundance, if you need tips on how to grow tomatoes successfully, this is the video for you. I'm so glad that you stopped by, and those who have been here before, thank you so much for continuing to be here video after video. I appreciate you. Y'all, the sun is beaming down, but I'm not complaining because the sun just came out, and so I ran outside because I've been gone for 8 days, but it has been raining here for the last 6 days, and there are 8 more days of rain in the forecast. So we are in Tennessee, in the South, and I think there's a lot of rain going around a lot of places for continuous days. And you guys know there is nothing like rainwater. It does the plants good, but too much of a good thing, it's still not good, okay? And so I'm concerned if we're gonna have 14, 15 days of rain. But y'all, when I came back, I will give you a tour hopefully later on this week, if again I can do that in between the rain showers and the rain burst and all of that. But things are looking good, things are looking lush. I'm very, very excited about the summer gardening season. I came back and it's like, man, how much can grow in 7 or 8 days? But the thing that I need to tackle today is the thing that I needed to tackle before I left, and I did not get a chance to do it, and that was prune our tomatoes. And so in this video, I'm going to walk you through the type of tomatoes that I prune, the ones that I don't prune, and why. I'm going to tell you why I prune the tomatoes and what is the benefit of doing it, and I'm going to show you how I do it. And so like I said, if you need some help or some tips about tomatoes, this is the video for you. But before we get started, let us, y'all, when I tell you things are just a blooming and everything, and it is hot in here. It's like mid-afternoon, and like I said, the sun literally just came out. It was not on the forecast. It has been raining all morning long since I've been back. But the sun came out, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. I think we can get some stuff done. And maybe I should focus outside since the sun is out. But no. Let's stay focused. Let us stay focused. But before we do the tomatoes, I see some things that need to be harvested that are looking so good. So should we do that first, or should we prune our tomatoes first? Okay, y'all, let's prune our tomatoes first. Let's stay on focus because that is a thing that needs to be done. So let me grab some pruners and let me first talk to you about what I'm pruning and show you where we're going to get started. My tomatoes have literally gone wild, y'all. I wish I should have had a before picture so you could see what they look like before I left. They were growing nicely, but they were not nearly this big. It just amazes me how much stuff can grow in literally 8 days. You can see, like, y'all, they are going every which way. We have tons of yellow flowers, and you'll see soon we have tons of tomatoes as well. So let's talk about how we're going to get this in shape and back in some order. Okay, as you guys can see, tomato row is doing its thing, okay? And so you can see, like I said before, that the tomatoes are kind of just all together. The branches are going every which way. And so there's 2 steps to how we do our tomatoes. First, I'm going to prune them, and it's not like a one-time thing. I prune every single week during the summer gardening season is the goal. And then also we're going to trellis it up as well. Both things are equally important, but let's first talk about pruning. And so first of of all, let me talk about, there's two different kinds of tomatoes. There are indeterminate tomatoes, and then there are determinate tomatoes. What we're focused on pruning today are indeterminate tomatoes. And so just a quick definition in case you are new to tomatoes: indeterminate tomatoes grow to an indeterminate height. They can get 7, 8, 9 feet tall, and they put on their tomatoes all throughout the summer. And so it'll put on tomatoes, you'll pick them, they'll put on more tomatoes, you pick them, you put on more tomatoes all throughout the summer. And so it is an indeterminate amount of tomatoes, and it is an indeterminate height. Most tomato plants that you're going to buy, if you're buying transplants from a nursery, from Home Depot, they're going to be indeterminate tomatoes. Okay, that's the majority of tomatoes that most people grow. But there is also a determinate tomato. A determinate tomato goes to a determined height. So it usually gets about 4 to 5 feet. 5 will be on the high end, and it's going to put on all of its tomatoes at one time, at a determined time, and it's a determined amount of tomatoes, meaning not it's going to be 7 tomatoes. I don't mean that type of determination. I mean it's going to put them all on at the same time. And so you get one big flush, and then that is it. That is the difference between a determinate tomato and an indeterminate tomato. So when it comes to pruning, you are going to prune only your indeterminate tomatoes. Your determinate tomatoes are things like Romas, Galahad, things like that. You do not prune those because, and I'm going to show you an example of that, of what a determinate tomato grows like and looks like as well. But you don't prune those because, again, it's putting on all of its blossoms at one time. Now, there is always a debate about to prune or not to prune. Now, I have done it both ways. When I first started gardening, I did not prune, and that was because of a lack of knowledge. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know any better, and trust me, I saw the results. Once I started pruning, I had much better results. The number one reason why I prune my tomatoes is to help with disease resistance. That is the number one reason why I do it. Because what happens is, you can see my tomatoes are going every which way. That means that the airflow is much less. When I prune the tomatoes, you will see I'm going to keep the bottom 2 to 3 inches of the plant free and clear. That means it has airflow and space for the air to move through, and it's going to create less chance for disease and pests. Also, when you are watering, you want to water the roots, and that's for any plant, not just your tomatoes. You want to water the roots and not necessarily the leaves. So because I'm on drip, it is automatically getting the root. But if I don't prune, it's going to get the leaves as well, which also creates another way to bring disease into your tomato plants. So let's start off, and it's always hard to show this because I can't get as close. I may see if I can get my husband to kind of zero in as I do one so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so this is the first tomato plant. This is one plant. You can see it's literally going every which way. And so my first goal is to get the bottom 2 inches of the plant free and clear. The first thing you want to do is find the main stem, right? And so for me, I'm looking, and this is the main stem right here. Let's see if you can pull in close. This is the main stem right there. You want to find the main stem, and then I am going to cut the branches at the bottom below the main stem to avoid the main stem. So like I just cut these off. It's gonna look like, so like, look how big that is. Yes, it has flowers, it has tomatoes forming. That's okay, it's gonna grow back. You may say, oh, I don't wanna cut that, but let me tell you, you do wanna cut it. So I'm gonna keep going all the way around this branch right here. Cut, cut, cut. I'm standing it up. I got branches here and here. You can see it's getting less. Now it's flopping over because this is so big and it needs to be trellised. But if you can see here, I'm gonna cut these 2 right here. I'm cutting everything near the bottom, avoiding the main stem. So you can already see here, I've opened up all of this space right here. So I'm cutting more here, cutting more there, cutting there, there. Now, if I were to stand this up, you can see all of the open space near the bottom.
Yep.
So we've created airflow. Once we trellis it, it's going to start to stand up, right? Now, what I just showed you was just clearing the bottom portion of the plant. But I also prune the suckers, right? So let me show you on this tomato what a sucker looks like. A sucker, if you come right here, where the plant makes a V, it's this part right here in the middle. This is called the sucker. If you do not prune this, it's going to create a whole new tomato plant going this way, and it's going to get wild. So I take the sucker out just like that. If I needed more tomato plants, I can root this. It's going to grow me a whole nother tomato plant. So it's a way to get free or extra tomato plants just by cutting the suckers off. So I'm going to prune the bottom, but I'm also going to prune the suckers. I'm going to do that all the way down. And my husband is getting ready to start the trellising, and you'll be able to see what a clear pathway we'll have near the bottom once we prune it all out. Now, the other reason why you prune, and here again goes the debate between why people don't prune versus prune. Now, a lot of people do not prune because they say they get more tomatoes if they don't prune. And that's true. If you do not prune, you will get more tomatoes, and they're going to be smaller. When you prune, you get less tomatoes that are bigger, right? But I think the benefits of pruning far outweigh getting more tomatoes, okay? Because again, it increases your risk, and your chances of disease goes much higher when you don't prune. And also, it is hard to harvest because the plant just goes wild. You have several different leaders, meaning the suckers are grown into tomato plants, and it just becomes really, really wild. I remember the first tomatoes that I grew were Brandywine. Y'all, that scarred me. I have not grown Brandywine since. And Brandywines are great tomatoes that have a great flavor, but they grow extremely wild, and they are hard to keep contained and prune, and they can literally get 9 feet. Now, like I said, it scarred me. Again, I didn't know anything about pruning, and so I just remember the plant was just going every which way. It was hard to contain. It was hard for me to harvest, and I had a lot of disease, okay? Once I started pruning my tomato plants, I would say about 3 years ago, it just makes it even more easy to manage and to see what you have. And also, you can see that if you're going to get disease, because you still can get disease with pruning, you're going to see that disease much quicker because you can see your plant, you can see what tomatoes you have, you can see your leaves and all of that. So I would love to know in the comments if you are team prune or no prune. Let me know what questions you have about pruning. Just put them down below. Now, I'm going to come back to pruning this right here, but let's go over to a determinate tomato plant, and let me show you the difference in how it grows versus what we just saw. Now, this is in a raised bed. This is a determinate tomato called, I think it's called Better Boy Bush. You can see how it's growing. It's growing in a bush, and if I had to guess, this plant is probably 3 feet tall. It already has tomatoes growing on it. You can see that in there. Look at those. Looks great. It's going to put on all of its blossoms at one time, but you can see I have it in a small obelisk trellis. You can see that here, right? That is containing it, and that's keeping it kind of sturdy and straight. I would never grow an indeterminate tomato in a raised bed. One, because it's going to be very hard to trellis or to stake. But for a determinate tomato, I'm not going to prune this. I'm not going to prune this at all because it's only going to put on so many tomatoes all at one time. And so there's no need for me to prune it. It's going to kind of stay contained in a bush format. So when you see like those tomato cages that a lot of people use, like from Home Depot or from a nursery, Those tomato cages are designed for determinate tomato plants. A lot of people will try to use those tomato cages for your indeterminate tomato plants, and you will see that it won't contain it, right? It's too small for how that plant is going to grow. You can already see, even though the indeterminate tomatoes have not grown tall as of yet, you will be able to see that as the journey continues. You can see it's kind of going in and out versus the one that I just showed you in the raised bed. It's kind of more compact. It's growing upright, but in a bush format, right? That is the reason why I have it in a raised bed, and I still have it contained within that obelisk trellis. That is the difference between a determinate versus an indeterminate. Now, I grow mostly indeterminate tomatoes just because, again, most of what you see, what you buy, the things that you like, your Cherokee purples, your Dr. Witchies, all of those are indeterminate tomatoes. The determinate tomatoes that I grow are typically Roma tomatoes, and I've done one called Galahad, and then there is another one. But Roma tomatoes are typically the ones that I grow that are determinate, and I will fill my raised beds in my backyard with Roma tomatoes because those are a great paste tomato, okay? And so I want you to see the difference. So if you're struggling with your tomatoes and like, oh my goodness, they're wild, they're not contained, they got a lot of disease, I want you to go back and assess, have you been pruning? And if not, I want you to try that this summer and see if you have better results. Now, I'm going to go back and start pruning all the way down. I got 2 whole rows to do, so it's going to take me a little bit of time, not a lot of time, but a little bit of time. So I'm just going to time lapse this part, and then also we'll show you about the trellising as well. So if you remember, before I left to go on vacation, I had a list of things to do, and pruning the tomatoes was on the list, and it's one of the only things that I did not get a chance to do before I left, and so I just had to leave it as is. Now, if I would have done this before I left, it would have been a lot easier because the plants, when I tell you they were not nearly this big, they were not nearly this big. But that's okay. We're getting it done today, and I'm going to feel so accomplished once this is done. Plus, it's never too late to do this. But of course, the longer that you wait and the bigger they are, the more involved it's going to be, and more branches that you have to cut. Now, a lot of people, again, will prune the bottom 2 inches. That's it. And then they don't do their suckers, or they may prune only the bottom inch. Now, I tend to prune pretty heavily, pretty deep. So I will go up, 3 or 4 inches. And when I get done, it'll look like the plant is like completely, like almost bare. But let me tell you, the tomatoes will grow. They will grow in abundance. I've done this for the last 3 years, and I've had great success with tomato harvest. I grow enough tomatoes to literally last me the entire year. And so we make sauces, we make salsas, we make tomato soup, we make freeze-dried tomatoes, we make tomato paste, we make all kinds of tomato products just from the tomatoes that we grow on the farm. And again, I literally have 1 bag of tomatoes left in my freezer, but guess what? I'm going to have tomatoes again in the next couple of weeks. So let me just tell you, this method works. I encourage you to try it if you've never done it before. Okay, guys, you can see all the debris behind me. I got the first row of tomatoes all pruned, and so I have 1 more row to do in here. My husband is coming behind me, and he is going to start the trellising process. And so there's several different ways that you can trellis your indeterminate tomatoes. So remember, on the determinate tomatoes, I have like an obelisk trellis. You could use a tomato cage. You could use those I think they're like triangular, and they get wide at the bottom. You can use many different kinds for determinate, but for indeterminate tomatoes, there's also several methods that you can use. So inside the tunnel, we use a string trellising method, and then also in the outside garden, we use cattle panel trellis. But there's also a method called lower and lean. There's a method called Florida weave. I've never done either of those two, and it's really about whatever is your personal preference. How much money you want to spend, what is the ease of use, and all of that. So we've been using the string trellising method. I think this is our 4th year using it in the high tunnel, and it works really, really well. So basically, you're gonna have some PVC pipe that runs across these rafters, or whatever, the lack of a better term. What do you call these, honey? Rafters. at the top of the high tunnel, and then we are going to suspend or tie string or jute twine at the top, run it all the way down, and then we use a landscape staple to staple the string at the bottom near the tomato plant, and then we use tomato trellising clips to clip the plant up along the string. And so basically what the process is, every single week during the summer, the goal is to prune the tomatoes and to continue to clip the tomato vines up the trellis as they continue to grow. And yes, it does need to happen weekly if you can, because the tomatoes grow just that fast. So I'm going to turn the camera around and show you what it looks like in action. And like I said, this method has worked very, very well for us. It gives it a nice, neat look. You can see what you have. You can see what it is to harvest. Now, I'll be honest. Now, I start off strong. Every single week I'm pruning. I am trellising with the tomato clips. And of course, if you stay on top of it, it goes by really, really fast. But somewhere around July, I start to slip off because all of the harvest is coming in, and just it's so much. It's so much that it's hard to keep up with it. But I try my best to do it at least every single week, especially the first couple of months as the tomatoes are growing. So let me turn the camera around and show you what that looks like in action. So you can see here at the top is that rafter. It's really a piece of PVC pipe, I think. We've had the same pipe for the last 4 years. So you make the initial investment and you are good to go. And so you can see that the string comes all the way down to the bottom of the plant. So you can see we have the plant clipped here, and you're going to clip it on the main stem and just keep clipping it all the way up, and that secures it to the string. So you can see what was once all a mess. You can actually see the bottom of the tomato plant, and you can see how we have literally at least 2 to 3 inches of the bottom plant completely clear. So it's going to have great airflow. It is pruned all the way. It is clipped up. And again, what will happen is, as this plant continues to grow, I will just take this piece, clip it right there where my finger is. As it continues to grow, just keep clipping it all the way up, and that's the way it'll look going forward. You can already see how much more clean this is. You can see, here's another example of how we have the string, it clipped here with these tomato clips. You can also use compostable tomato trellis clips, so that at the end of the season, you can really just yank the string down with the clips and throw it all in your compost pile as well, if you want to do it that way. These clips right here are not compostable, but I have done those in the past. So let's talk about what happens if you say, you know what, I don't want to trellis. That's a big mistake. I'm telling you, if you're growing indeterminate tomatoes, you want to trellis, because what happens is the tomato is going to, one, get top heavy, and it's going to be going every which way and almost laying down, like you saw when we started this video, how my tomatoes were just kind of like down on the ground, because again, I had not pruned them and I had not trellised them. Now, normally we do this process, maybe I would say 2 or 3 weeks before, as they're getting started. And so that way, it's a lot easier if you start at the very beginning when they're small, but we missed that window. And so that's why we're doing it now. And once we have it in place, the only thing we'll have to do week by week is to continue to clip it up and to continue to prune the suckers as we go, and keep that bottom area clear. But if you decide not to trellis, again, you're going to invite more disease and pests to your plants, and then also they're going to be top heavy and not be able to stand up, which means they're going to be laying down on the ground. Now, if you say, hey, I don't want to prune, again, that is a personal choice. Yes, you do get more tomatoes if you don't prune, but again, I will tell you, it makes it very, very difficult to maintain and to take care of your tomato plants. Pruning is going to, again, when you prune, is sending the signal to the tomato plant to grow more tomatoes and to grow bigger tomatoes, and not focus so much on the root system. When you don't prune, it's going to keep creating suckers, leaves, branches, all of those different things, and it's going to focus less on growing bigger fruit. And so you almost have to tell the plant what to do. And when you're pruning, that's exactly what you're doing. The process sounds bad, but it's not bad. It is actually a good thing for the plant. So I highly suggest, if you have not tried this method of pruning your tomatoes, I want you to try that this summer. Let me know what questions you have in the comments. Also, let me know what method you're using to trellis your tomato plants if you're doing an indeterminate variety. Again, if if you are doing indeterminate and you have had meager success and not a lot of success because you haven't trellised and you haven't pruned, that may be the reason why. So what we're going to do now is we're going to continue to trellis. I'm going to go ahead and start on the second row of pruning before my husband catches up to me, and hopefully we will get all of these plants pruned and trellis hopefully by the end of this video. Okay, y'all, I left my husband out here yesterday to finish up. Once I finished my pruning part, he was still working on the trellis, so I actually went back in the house and was taking care of some other stuff. So I'm back out here the next day, and I want to show you that we got it done. I think he got everything done except for the last two, and that was just because it got so dark. He said he couldn't see and it was time to come in. But y'all, it looks so much better. Let me turn the camera around and show you the finished product. Y'all, it looks so much better. I don't even know if the video does it justice, but like, look at this right here. It's clear at the bottom. It's going all the way up. I can see my tomatoes right there, and it's that way all the way down. I gotta clean up the debris and the mess, but so much cleaner. We have tomatoes popping up everywhere. You can see this row, and then also it helps me to see what still needs to be pruned. Like, there's some suckers that I missed because I just couldn't see. So again, here is an example of a sucker. You can see it's forming that V. This right here is the sucker, so I'll go back and prune that. I have another sucker there, and again, if I was short on tomato plants, I would take that sucker and root it and have a whole nother tomato plant. But look and see how much better that looks, and I can easily see the tomatoes that I have forming, which is nice. So all the way down. So the only two that's not done is that one and that one. Everything else, we have strings all the way through. Y'all, when I tell you I'm so happy to check that off my list, I'm so happy to check that off my list. It just even feels better when you walk in and you just see them all kind of strung up. So what I will do is I'll go back through and prune a little bit more, prune the suckers that I didn't see the first time, and prune anything else that needs to be pruned. I do see a couple of wild branches, but for the most part, it is done. Also, we ran out of the tomato clips, and this is why I always say order your supplies in the spring so that when you need them, you have them. We had some, but we ran out, so I had to order some more. I have 300 more coming tomorrow, and that way we'll be able to clip up some a little bit more. We put an initial clip on every one of them, but so that we could space it out, so we would have a clip for every one. We didn't double clip it as much as we needed to. So for example, like this one here, if I had another clip, I would clip it again right there. It's clipped down here, all the way down there, but I would also clip it up here so that it would be a little bit more secure. But we will certainly do that when the clips come tomorrow. So I'm glad about that. So I'm really glad that we got this done. Pruning and trellising complete. So in the outside garden, we have cattle panel up, and so we will do a similar process. Now the cattle panel is already there, and it's been there for years, and we just kind of rotate our crops. One year, one row of the trellis will have our peas on it, and then the next year we'll swap and put tomatoes on it, and vice versa. And so with the tomatoes, we'll do a similar process. We will use the same clips and clip it actually to the trellis, but because the trellis is already there in place, there's nothing to hang or anything like that. So like I said, there's several different methods that you can use for your indeterminate tomatoes. And then for your determinate tomatoes, you can use something like a tomato cage, you can use a stake, you can use an obelisk trellis, that what I showed you before. So there's many different things that you can do. So y'all, mission accomplished today. Let me know what questions you have about tomatoes, pruning and trellising, or tomatoes in general. And tomatoes are one of the things that I feel like every gardener grows, unless you just don't like tomatoes or tomato products. But it is like the quintessential, it is like the ultimate thing that gardeners strive for are tomatoes. You know, if you have a summer garden, if it's your first time, I don't care if I ask you what you're growing, they're always going to say tomatoes. And they say that tomatoes Some people say that tomatoes are one of the easiest things to grow, and I quite honestly disagree. I don't feel like tomatoes are the easiest thing to grow. I think that tomatoes take some skill. It takes some maintenance. That's not just, like I said, set it and forget it. And so I always tell a new gardener that if you don't succeed with tomatoes, do not count it as a strike against you, because to me it's not one of the easiest things to grow, especially when you're new. There's a lot of things to know, like the difference between the determinate and indeterminate, knowing how to trellis, knowing when to prune, what not to prune, all of those things, and then also just battling hornworms and insects and airflow and temperature and calcium and blossoming end rot. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into growing a tomato that does not make it the easiest crop to grow. But you can grow it with some skill, some knowledge, some perseverance, growing the right varieties, growing it in the right section of your garden, and all that kind of stuff. It is possible. So I wanted to make this like a one-stop shop video when it came to pruning and trellising your tomatoes. But I certainly invite your questions. If there's any other tomato content you want me to create specifically around tomatoes, drop it down below. I will be happy to do it for you, because remember, y'all, this is all a journey. Let's do it together. I'll see you next time, friend.